House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
Half a day, everybody. Jason Salas, Liz in the nation's capital right there. Because, hey, no self-respecting Guamanian would wear leather that nice and be like on Guam right now. So she's in DC. And with
It
the
is,
equally,
it's cold,
I would
cold.
assume so. Well, you're on your way to a much warmer climate in Portugal and everything. So safe travels to you. And joining us with an equally welcoming smile is the Vice Speaker of the 38th Guam Legislature, the Honorable Vice Speaker Tony Atta. Vice,
Am
half
I?
a day. Good to see you as always.
I'm here in Hagåtña, so you can tell by the short sleeve, right?
There you go. Or I'm going to say, the two flags and the sign of the legislature travels well with you.
Yeah, thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. Hi, Liz.
Hi there, but thank you. I really appreciate the fact that you're making the time to join us, and I felt that it was really important. You've been instrumental in passing and helping the other senators as well, collaborating and passing many of the bills that the Guam Association of Realtors, and even personally, you've been helping to push a lot of those bills forward. And you ought to be, your team ought to be commended. And we'd like to kind of have you talk about other bills that maybe you're working on that you need the community support. And
Hmm.
of course, we want to back up your bills and your team's bills. Yes.
Right. Yeah, and maybe perhaps right, it's not the bills that I'm looking to introduce, but actually looking back in the past, right, and seeing what programs were available in the past that we're not currently taking advantage of. And I think, Liz, you know this better than
Yes.
anyone else, is the mortgage credit certificate.
Yes. That bill, I think Carlos Camacho worked on that a number of years, and it actually avails families the ability to buy a home by increasing their ability, their income power to
Right.
purchase a home. And across the nation, that particular certificate is being utilized, but Guam, we're lacking. It's been
Hmm.
25 years since he brought it up, and Guam has not utilized it. And I think we're also looking at the Guam housing to put together rules and regs pertaining to that. And then you need, on the legislative side, you need to work on updating that bill so
Exactly.
it moves
Yeah.
forward.
Yes. So, and that's what it comes down to, right? And it's not bringing in new ideas. It's taking these ideas that have been there. And Jason, it's so fitting that you're here being the host, is because your dad was one of the sponsors of this legislation. So, it's really a piece of legislation that is bound to help our people. And like Liz said, it's talking about updating and seeing how we can be able to move forward and affordable housing. But now I know there's a lot of people that want that attainable housing.
And the last
That's
time my dad was
housing
in
that you
office
can
was in
purchase.
2004, so this has been around for a while.
Right? And Liz said it 25 years ago.
Yep.
So, it's one of those things that we want to continue to work on and make this available to our people, to the people here on Guam.
Mm. I wanted to ask something, Vice Speaker, because and you're a businessman, so you know about the importance of being able to run a healthy business, and roll with the changes. But the real estate industry and property in general, isn't a highly regulated industry. I mean, there is some, government invention, and obviously you want policy, to dictate and to keep everybody, on the straight and narrow. So how do you actually like enforce fair competition without being too restrictive and and really like hampering capitalism? I mean, it's a delicate dance.
Well, it is, and Liz is the expert out there with these issues, right? And that's why we have the Guam Land Use Commission, right? Is to ensure that, and the regulatory agencies to ensure that where you place homes or businesses will be in the appropriate areas, and that we're not overpopulating commercial or industrial businesses into residential zones. So that's the importance of having the Guam Land Use Commission, and also now the Mayor's Council, right? They play a big role in this issue as well, because they're the ones that come out and say, well, is this good for our community? Are we going to have this balance of commercial businesses and residential? Are we being overpopulated businesses? So that's where these folks have that say for their community and how they can move forward with development. And not overdeveloping to where it's a lot of industrial and less residential, and ensuring that these different categories go into their respective places.
When we talk about, and like for the past several gubernatorial administrations, the phrase the Guamanian dream like always comes up, and I've always been very, very inspired by that and fascinated by it. And maybe Liz, will start with you because you have the American dream, which has always been go to college, stable income, good retirement, but also home ownership, right? And having a good investment portfolio of which real estate is a good part. But when you deal with the Guamanian dream, that's true also. But a lot of that as islanders, we say I would like the land passed down to me from my descendants to either remain in my family, or I want to build upon it, or I want to do something with it, or I just, if it's the jungle, I want to keep it in the jungle because that was Nana and Tata's property and I want to give that to my grandkids, even if we do nothing about it. But Liz, does that make the Guamanian dream more complex than the theoretical
Well,
American dream, or is it easier?
I think on Guam, the value of land is very important. My dad passed away in 1977. He and my mom accumulated property by buying, subdividing, and they provided 11, imagine 11 children had a piece of property. And our role in receiving that property was either to build or using that property as an opportunity to buy a home, like leveraging it somehow. So the locals, that's still the local Chamorro dream: keep your property or build on it. The problem we're having right now is a lot of these areas, and this is where we need the legislature to come up with
Mhm.
solutions where I could own a big parcel. I can't do anything with it because there's no infrastructure. It's not its zone, a certain zone, and I'm limited with because everything has to do with zoning. If it's residential, then you can build a home. And then the lot size, of course, there's requirements for lot sizes. Same thing is applicable with agriculture. But again, each family here have property that they've passed along. Some families, there's maybe 100 of them. And like my grandfather gave property in Okudu, there were so many, there are probably 100 heirs involved.
Wow.
And you cannot divide that with so many people because of the clan. So what we did was we sold it and then we divvied up the money among the different clans involved. So every family here, there are different issues. One, they can
Mhm.
develop maybe, or they can't. So with the help of the legislature, we've been looking at the different issues as they crop up. And the Guam Association of Realtors as well. Personally, John is a civil engineer. We look at all these different issues. Okay, how do we help the community by moving laws so that people could either develop on their property, subdivide it, bring in infrastructure? But the government right now, there are issues. Funding, right?
Yes,
Senator Adam,
absolutely. Yeah.
funding is the biggest problem. We need sewer lines that would help people develop in certain areas around the island. And all you hear is there's no funds. Now, we talked about this, Senator,
Mm.
that, hey, there was that 90 million in excess. And then I remembered you saying there's not much left. Of the
Yeah.
90
Right.
million, there's not much left.
Right. Yeah. So, and Jason, you said it right. It's that the Guamanian dream, right? Of coming, a lot of our children or a lot of families that have left Guam want to come back. And how do we get them to come back is to start opening up that dream, right? We need to get the jobs back into our island. We need to get uh, attainable home ownership, because that's why a lot of people, instead of paying someone else's mortgage, they should be paying on their own mortgage so that they have that tangible, right? That home that they can call their own. I mean, when I look at my own property, my property was my grandfather's property, moved down to my mom, and then now to me, and eventually it's going to go to my son. And so it's been in our family for many years. And it's something that, yes, we will pass down. The only thing that it's not going to happen is I'm not going to renovate the house for the kids to move in.
Hey, you're empty nesters, they've left.
Exactly. So, when that time comes to pass it on, I hope they have a wonderful time, renovating and say, wow, wow, mom and dad left us a lot of renovations to do.
I think the politically correct way to say that would be like, okay, kids, what do you want to do with it?
No, because that's one thing is gonna have to stay is in the family. Um, Whether it goes to my son or my grandson or my granddaughter, I would really want them to keep the property in the family. I mean, that's the only thing that you have, and once you have land, they don't make any more land. Everything else they can make, but they can't make land. So once you have that piece of property in your family, by all means try to keep it as long as you can for as many generations pass it down to.
And now, how about
So I
with
wanted
empathy?
to
Because
ask the
oh,
senator
go ahead.
what other bills,
Sorry, go ahead,
oh,
Liz.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask what other bills are you working on that we could help you in terms of getting the word out to the community that you have this bill that's coming up, and what can we do to come? And we encourage the community to come and testify to help support you moving bills forward that help our island.
Well, we'll be working on more legislations that uh, will help improve the quality of life, right? And as we form these legislations and get what we need to do, and for example, right, what is it that we can do to help lower the cost of groceries, right? And one of those things is perhaps, what is the highest cost in a grocery store? Electricity, right? And because they got to keep the produce fresh, they got to keep the milk cold, they have to keep the products fresh by keeping the air conditioners on, and those things stay on 24 hours a day. So we're trying to see how is it that we can come up with legislation that will help the supermarkets to lower their costs on electricity so that they can pass those savings on to the consumers who buy the food, who buy the products to help feed their families. And that's what we're currently working on, in addition to the mortgage credit certificate and how we can move that forward.
Because
You can
that then encourages more businesses to actually set up a physical shop here, as opposed to say like doing a pure e-commerce model. Would that be correct?
Exactly, because that's where a lot of the tax revenues are, the leakage is at, right? Is when you buy from Amazon, when you buy from Walmart, when you buy from Target, yes, you're getting it at whatever price you're getting it, but the brick and mortar stores here are getting the brunt end because they have to pay electricity, they have to pay employees, they have to pay all the bills that come along with it, but yet the consumers are not purchasing locally, and they're buying from off island.
There was a vendor at one of the malls here told me one of the most interesting things I've ever heard in my career about like business, and they say, the real difference between Amazon and me, Amazon doesn't have to pay for a bathroom.
Right.
And that is true, because that is
Yeah.
one of the costs that gets factored into the ultimate cost of goods sold.
Yeah. And that's the utilities, right? The water, the power, the infrastructure, the sewer. So, all that when you buy locally, all that goes right back into our economy once again, right? By means of taxation where, they pay the local taxes, they pay their power, they pay their water. So helping the local businesses helps our economy. And when we help our economy, we help our economy to grow.
How about also the fact, Vice, as a policymaker, because Guam doesn't have, and I've talked to like DPW about this, we don't have like city planners in the traditional sense, where you have like a whole bunch of teams, who are very highly skilled, and they've gone to college for these kind of things, and actually sector out different areas of the island. I mean, yeah, we've got like Harmon Industrial Park, but you can actually identify different um like different regions, or different, like like you have the commercial district, you have the meatpacking district, the financial district, the fashion district, whatever. um a lot of that responsibility kind of falls on you then, to say like, if we craft public policy that would then allow for commercial development in a certain part of the island, or make something purely agricultural, or things like that, that's a little bit more on your plate then.
Yeah, because what folks do, right? For example, is some of them come back to the legislature to do a zone change in an area, right? But when they come to the legislature to do that, it depends on what that area is. And if they looking to change the zoning from, let's say, residential to commercial, is there other commercial lots within that area that they're looking to change, or are they looking to establish a new commercial lot in a completely residential area. So those are the things that we really have to be cautious on, and that's why we look at the regulatory agencies for that and for them to go through that process. When we do zone change, it's perhaps something that, like I mentioned earlier, it's already established in the area, and they just need that one particular lot to be changed to meet the other lots that are either commercial or industrial.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're right. City planners, DPW used to be, I think, 300 strong back in the day, and now DPW has really shrunk in size, and a lot of the professionals are, um, limited. So they have limited abilities to do what is needed to plan, perhaps urban planning, right? Like urban development within the different areas of our island.
Mhm. How about
But each area, I mean, you got your industrial zone, if it's an M1 zone, there's certain type of businesses that could be in that particular area, like off of Route 3, there's M1 zones and they're
Right.
building warehouses. And then you've got the build up there, which brings me to, I think, the issue that we were trying to look at the possibilities of doing permitted use versus conditional use
Mm-hmm.
of N1 zones to help with the workforce housing. That was another thing that we were bringing to the legislature about trying to pass um, a law that allows for permitted use, which it could happen rather quickly instead of conditional use, which could take 8 months to a year to get that particular zoning in place, when especially the need for workforce housing is critical at this time with the buildup that's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. Don't want to do is uh, have these workers come in and take up apartment buildings or take up multifamily dwellings, to where now, instead of local families going into apartments or going into duplexes and things like that, we have these
Displacing.
workforce laborers that are occupying them instead of doing a permitted use permit. Yeah. Absolutely. So, it does make a lot of sense, because then it would turn around and alleviate those workers from occupying residential houses that can actually house families.
now? How
Yeah,
about also
especially
for the
with the
fact?
shortage.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, how about also the empathy you have for veterans and people who have served? Because you may have somebody that said, I grew up on Guam. I went to school. I enlisted at age 18. I served 30 years, and I served my country hopefully in an honorable way. And now I want to come home and I want to build, or I want to retire on Guam, making sure that we provide, for that community. And although you're not a banker and you don't set up like the financial lending programs, um, again, that is still something that you're sensitive to.
Yeah, definitely. And the advantage that the veteran has is that they have their veterans benefits, that they could purchase a home or buy build a home at 90%, 100% financing. So that's the ability that they have. Now what we need to do is ensure that we are able to get those folks that have retired and want to call Guam home again to come back and start establishing themselves, so that we can get them to be residents, and eventually you know um, taxpayers that will help with the tax base of our government.
Mm. Maybe say this because Liz posed a question a few moments ago, and maybe make the sales pitch, if you will, to the average citizen if they feel in lockstep with you about like a piece of legislation that you're proposing, or they're completely like against you, and they would wish to challenge it. What real difference does them coming out and voicing their opinion, either in written form or in testimony, how much change can that actually make if they have opinions about like, and they come out and they voice?
It's actually really good for the public to always come to the public hearings, whether they're for or against a piece of legislation, because at times what would happen is no one will show up, and the bill will move forward through the committee, to go through the markup, get onto the committee of rules, get to the session agenda, and then once it's on the floor, that's then we start hearing, oh, that's not a good piece of legislation, it shouldn't be moving forward. And but they never came out during the public hearing event, right? So it is always important to try and make the public hearings when you feel that a piece of legislation is not in the best interest of the people or the community. And
Well, and at the same time, it's like if legislation comes up and if it has to do with real estate, they would normally reach out to us to ask us for our feedback and input. Every line of expertise is important when it
mhm,
comes to the by bringing the line of expertise onto the table to have the discussion, the legislature, the senators have done. It's when it involves real estate, we're called to the table, and I'm sure the other arenas of expertise, they called certain people to come to the table to give their feedback. And so, as Senator put it, when it does go out for public hearing, then all of a sudden, if we weren't called to the table, guaranteed we'll be there. We'll be there voicing our opinions. But you're right. When we call for community action, sometimes they don't hear about it or talk about it, and some show, some don't. But
right.
and that's why this program is very important. And again, thank you, Senator, for coming, because this is important to get the information out to the community and then invite them to come when you have your hearings.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we want to always do is, and that's why the public hearing notice law, transparency, all that is taken into account in notifying the public about the pieces of legislations that's going up for public hearing.
And of course, it is the holiday season is now upon us and everything. So we it's going to be a very tense time for a variety of reasons and everything. But this is really our time for our community to really come together, because there's also some very big issues that and big decisions that people like yourself and your colleagues, Vice, are going to have to make that have a pretty big impact. So like we should all voice our opinion, whether it's either you're fully against, fully for, or you just have like an insight that you would like our elected policymakers to consider.
Absolutely, because the people's voice is what matters, right? And where they stand on the on and that's what we gotta take into account. Like I said, if you're for or against a piece of legislation, always make your voice be heard.
All right. Well, Liz, I know they have really good food over there in DC, so and it's probably really late where you are right now. So we'll let you get some good shopping done right over there, and please have a wonderful time in Portugal. It's beautiful there.
Thank you, Senator, always.
Thank you,
And
Liz. Thank you, Jason.
we'll be calling you back again. Thank you.
All
Okay,
right. Thanks
thank
so
you.
much. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.